Question number 7, Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Housing. What reports has he received on the effect of loan-to-value restrictions on the housing market?
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, I've not received any formal reports, and the advice from my officials is that after just 1 month it is too early to draw firm conclusions on the effect of the LVR restrictions on the housing market. I have noted 3 reports from other sources. The first is from Statistics New Zealand on building consents. It showed a 22% increase in new dwelling consents as compared with the same month last year, the highest build rate in Canterbury in 37 years, and the highest build rate for New Zealand in 5 years. I also note the latest real estate figures on house prices that shows a slowing in house price increases, and the report from the ASB showing a dip in house price expectations. The final report, I note, states, and I quote, "We do support LVRs. We've been calling for them for ages," and this report was from Mr Phil Twyford.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
Is he concerned that master builders say that inquiries for new builds have dropped off by 30% since LVRs were introduced, and that because of the time lag, it won't be until next year until we see the drop-off in new builds? And if so, isn't this just more evidence that the government's housing policy has collapsed?
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Dr Nick
Mr Speaker, it's difficult to ask that's been collapsed when we've got the highest rate of new building consents in 5 years, when we've got the highest rate of building in Canterbury in 37 years, and when this government has got work underway on materials, on land supply, on infrastructure costs, all opposed by members opposite who somehow pretend that they want to help New Zealanders get access to affordable houses.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
Has he seen the comments by Quotable Value Research Director John O. Ingerson, who said today that LVRs may have more impact in provincial areas outside of Auckland and Canterbury? Given that 95% of house price inflation is taking place in Auckland and Canterbury, and in a number of parts of provincial New Zealand, house prices are either static or declining, will he concede that the government really didn't think through the implications of LVRs before it signed off the agreement with the Reserve Bank?
Honourable Dr Nick Smith, and as far as
the first point is that the LVR policy has been implemented by an independent Reserve Bank under legislation of which members opposite actually support, I thought, an independent Reserve Bank. The part that even makes the member's question more stupid is that he has said on the public record that he's been calling for LVRs for years and welcomed them when they were introduced.
Speaker.
Supplementary question, Louise Upston.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Supplementary question to the Minister of Housing. What has been the average house price increase over the past 5 years, and how did it compare with the increase over the previous 5 years?
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
The average price increase in New Zealand over the last 5 years has been 3.6% per year, or 20% over those 5 years. It's interesting to note that in the previous 5 years, it increased by an average of 12% per year, or 76% in just 5 years. And I note during that previous 5 years, the government did absolutely diddly squat about house price affordability. In contrast, we're making great progress in all the areas like land supply, like infrastructure costs and like materials, and ironically, members opposite are opposing every one of those measures.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker.
Order. Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
When he compared our mortgage market with that of the United States, which saw, quote, millions of Americans left with mortgages in excess of the value of their properties, unquote, what advice has he had to back up his claim that Auckland is in a housing price bubble and that it's in danger of bursting, wiping out the equity built up by homeowners?
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
I do think this country needs to learn the lessons from both North America and Europe, where for all the enthusiasm there may have been from the building industries, those house price bubbles did enormous damage to those economies. And I can't believe the attitude of members opposite to completely ignore the lessons of history and not want to take a cautious view around financial stability in the way in which our Reserve Bank is administering those responsibilities.
Order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Phil Twyford.
I referred the Minister to a direct quote from his own statement.
Order,
I asked him for what advice he's received on that matter. He did not address that.
To make progress, I'm going to invite the member to ask his question again.
When he compared our mortgage market with that of the United States, which saw millions of Americans left with mortgages in excess of the value of their properties, what advice has he had to back up that claim that Auckland is in a housing price bubble and that it's in danger of bursting, wiping out the equity built up by homeowners?
Speaker.
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, it is an absolute matter of public record with numerous reports that New Zealand house prices are grossly out of step with incomes. The most recent report was yesterday from the OECD. We could look at the reports from Labour's period in government, where house prices more than doubled, grew by over 100% at the same time that incomes went up by only 30%. We could look at the report of the Productivity Commission, which was comprehensive in its advice around the concern of ongoing house price increases, and that's why this government is addressing the fundamentals of land supply, infrastructure costs, materials costs, to make sure that New Zealanders get access to more affordable housing.
Supplementary question, Brendan Horan.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister aware of a collapse on the number of first home buyer inquiries in Tauranga and Nelson since the loan-to-value restrictions came into force? And did he foresee this, or is it an unintended consequence?
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, on the 1st of October, this government actually increased the support for first home buyers. We did that by expanding the Kiwi Saver scheme, which was particularly advantageous for people in Nelson and Tauranga, where the house price limit was lifted by over $50,000, and because we have trebled the number of welcome home loans that are limited to first home buyers and provides them with an exemption from those LVR limits from the Reserve Bank. Those changes to welcome home loans are particularly helpful for communities like Tauranga and Nelson, because the previous limits meant that very few families had access to those welcome home loans.
Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
Does he have the same attitude to the plight of first home buyers shut out of the Kiwi dream by high loan-to-value restrictions as that of the Prime Minister, who told them in the Herald today, yeah, OK, well, fine, that's the way it goes?
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has been absolutely committed to first home buyers, and that's why this government, as I have just said, trebled the number of welcome home loans, doubled the number of people that will be eligible for the Kiwi Saver first home deposit subsidy, and why the Prime Minister is such a strong supporter of this government's very ambitious agenda to get house prices under control after a period of government with Labour where those house prices more than doubled.
Question number 8, the Honourable Phil Heatley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.